You're listening to a Galactic Network podcast. For more, go to gncast.com.
We're the ElseNerds.
Hello and welcome to ElseNerds, a production of Galactic Network. I'm Gregor Sprague, and joining me is Corey Scott and Sean Burns and special guest Kevin. I'm assuming last name is Burns as well.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no denying.
And real quick, before we get on to the shenanigans of part of the reason why we are a half hour late starting the show, for all info on this show, you can go, including show notes and subscription links, you can go to ElseNerds.com. And for other Galactic Network programs, you can go to gncast.com. And on ElseNerds, we tend to shoot our mouth off without thinking, so we will both spoil things and we will swear liberally. You have been warned.
It sounds like we're shooting our butts off for a second there.
Yeah. And also a thank you to our newest Patreon partner, Growly Bear, fan of the show, watcher of us live occasionally. So thank you, sir, for keeping us on the air. Don't know why you did.
And now for your punishment.
We're just here to question your judgment about everything, you know.
So, God, I am crying from like laughing so hard right now. So Corey, Shawn, Kevin, how you guys doing? I'll let whoever wants to answer first.
Fantastic.
Spectacular.
Kevin and I just went and finally saw Wonder Woman this afternoon, so we're doing pretty good.
So wasn't it great when Captain America came in at the end there?
It was.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it. Totally surprised. When they bang shields together like that, fantastic.
Yeah.
It's almost
Just
like a fist
good
bump, but
yeah, like a good 30 minutes of just shield banging.
By the way, Bang Shields was my 80s tribute band to the Blue Lagoon.
I, of course, say that because Corey has yet to see Wonder Woman.
And I'm really bummed about it, by the way. I want you guys to know, I had the biggest intent of seeing Wonder Woman, not the opening weekend, but very early on, and it just has not happened for me yet. And that sucks because not only did I feel like it's an important DC film and important superhero film to have out there, but it actually sounds like it's been really good and has received popular opinion, which we'll talk about that later on in the ElseViews.
I'm honestly like, I want to touch back on like when you do watch this, what you think of Wonder Woman, because I talked with Peter Fisher about it. Me and Sean, we could probably talk later, about it, and all that. But I want to get your opinion because you've helped me think more critically, not just like dumb popcorn person, about Man of Steel and then Batman vs Superman. Like the reports did like help me think that like, oh, that's the ultimate version's okay, but we gotta have the ultimate version and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really curious to that. But we should probably, before we do any more horse shit shenanigans, we should probably get into the news. And we have essentially two news stories here because the first one is a little combo deal, and it's Sam Wilson is returning as the Falcon. This is going to be taking place in Marvel's Legacy relaunch event. I don't know what the fuck to call this thing.
More of the same is what a lot of people are calling it so far.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But part of me is hoping this is more DC Rebirth than it's Marvel now. Now. But yeah, so there's two articles. One, and we'll link to the other one because the other one's mainly just it's all the covers of it, and a lot of the covers are tributes to other issues. Like the revamp of Astonishing X-Men is tribute to the Joss Whedon run on Astonishing X-Men and stuff like that. So Corey, what are your thoughts on on this?
Well, I think we went a little bit in on this last week, is that we were talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I like the Falcon as the Falcon. I don't dislike him as Captain America at all, but I don't really see why in the movies they would need to make a legacy Captain America. In comic books, it works because you can always reset with comics very easily. In films, that's another thing entirely, because actors age out, and it seems kind of silly.
Yeah.
But him going back to Falcon in the comics is fine. At this point in time, the relationship between him and Steve Rogers as Captain America is relatively strained due to what's going on in Secret Empire, and I'm interested to see what comes along with this as the new status quo.
Yeah.
What is Falcon's story going to be now that he's no longer filling in to Steve's boots, essentially?
Now, I'm excited for this because of the fact that where I did enjoy the Captain America Sam Wilson book because it tackled race. It tackled a lot of things that comic book fans had fallen guilty of, with the, oh well, they cast Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch. Oh no, Johnny Storm is not black. Blah 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 blah. They tackle that like Captain America's not black. Oh my gosh, why are you doing this to us? In there, and it was a great, compelling story. You know, like that's where I really enjoyed it. And you know, am I upset that
when you say great compelling story, you don't mean the Josh Trank Fantastic Four movie, though, right? You mean Sam Wilson Captain America?
Sam Wilson is Captain America, not the Fantastic Four.
I just didn't want you to embarrass yourself and us entirely by.
Oh no. See, I don't like I you can complain about the Josh Trank Fantastic Four movie. The least thing you need to complain about is Michael B. Jordan playing Johnny
Absolutely.
Storm.
Yeah.
I mean, if your problems are with that, you would need to watch the movie just to realize how much it sucked.
That movie was nothing in the blame of that movie goes towards the casting.
I would rather watch the what is it, Roger Corman, that version, that Fantastic Four than that.
Shawn, have you ever seen the Roger Corman Fantastic Four?
I have seen clips from it, but that's about as far as I've gotten with it. And I don't know that I could sit through the whole thing. I mean, I'm sure I could, just from a standpoint of saying I've experienced this, but from what I've seen, I don't think I could buy into that. I would rather see the newer movies, as bad as they are.
It was certainly more beholden to the original material than the most recent film.
Mm-hmm.
The early 2000s ones with Chris Evans and the Human Torch and Ian Griffold and all those characters, I think was very true to Fantastic Four. I think it was just what none of them have been true to, except for the Corman one, is Doctor Doom. And they haven't told very good stories. But the Corman one, I remember watching it on VHS. We had it at one of the comic shops that I managed when I still was in Michigan, and I'd play every once in a while. It's not memorable. It's not good. It's not even one of those things that you see it in that time period where you don't have a lot of superhero movies and say, oh, this is fantastic because it's the only Marvel superhero movie we have at this point. Right. It just wasn't. It's akin to the made-for-television Captain America movies, which as a kid I loved, but as an adult I'm like, none of that works. So it's right in there with its time, and I love when people say, "Oh, the Corman one was much more true and a much better representation of Fantastic Four." I don't know, man. Dr. Doom looked like Gonzo from the Muppets, and when they finally decide to make the Human Torch into the Human Torch, it's obviously hand-drawn animation and it's just a hot mess. But it's worth seeing it. It's worth seeing it for the one time, just like seeing the Generation X movie or the Power Pack made-for-TV movie. All of those things, you got to sit through them once if you have the opportunity, and then you can walk away and just know, thank God. thank God for that.
Although now that you mention it, I kind of want to see the Muppets do Fantastic Four. I think we might finally get the Fantastic Four movie we want.
Yeah, that would be actually. The thing is that we have the Fantastic Four movie we want. It's called The Incredibles.
Yeah, true.
So I mean, going through. So Corey, can you explain a little bit of the controversy of what Marvel Legacy is possibly hitting at here?
Yeah, so what Marvel's run into as a company, one of their biggest problems lately seems to be not even the content of their books, not even the stories and stuff. Certainly the people who spend more time tweeting than actually making the comics, but it seems to be their marketing. Because where there's been frustrations lately is we know that a couple months back, one of the people made a statement of, we tried to really push diversity in our comics and the response hasn't been good. And they kind of made the blame be about the diverse characters that they were introducing, as opposed to the fact that they were doing event after event and the comics were selling for $3.99 to $4.99 to $5.99. So they were pricing out people. They were constantly relaunching. They just didn't seem to understand where retailers are coming from, saying your comics don't sell anymore. And yes, it may be that people want to read Steve Rogers as Captain America, but Steve Rogers had a comic. It may be that they want to read the original Thor as Thor. Well, Odinson had a comic. So I'm not sure exactly. It certainly they were taking in directions of Tony Stark isn't Iron Man anymore, but Tony Stark is kind of in Iron Man, even though he's dead and some like artificial intelligence thing. I don't know what he is.
He's unconscious, uploaded his brain before
he's the new Jarvis.
Dying. Yeah.
So the problem, maybe the people don't want to read comics about Riri Williams as Ironheart or whatever, or maybe don't want to read about Victor Von Doom as Superior Iron Man, or maybe it's not that. Maybe it's a lot of other things. So Marvel has been saying that they're going to push out this new legacy thing that's going to get them back to basics, and it's going to reintroduce some of the more established characters, and it's going to be a core reshuffle of Marvel into what made Marvel great. And how they introduce it is a lot of covers for books that look like they're the same goddamn books, just in homage covers to old books. And they don't give you any information as to who's writing them. They don't give you any information as to who's drawing them or what the story content is. It's just a bunch of goddamn covers that look like the same shit. And that's not going to help them. And if those books come out and they're $5 a pop, that's not going to help them either. So Marvel had to basically start a whole other like tour, not a tour exactly, but they're going to be talking to retailers about the legacy thing. They're going to be talking to the Comics Pro retailers, which is a comics professional retail organization that is like, you have to pay to be a member of it and everything. But they're going to go up to them and say, no, this is really what Legacy is about. It's like, well, you should have done that from day one. And while you do have to put some information out to the retailers, you kind of have to put it out to the fans too. And I'm sure that stuff will leak, but they're just not doing a very good job of selling what Marvel is today. Whereas when DC did Rebirth, they seemed to pick up from the fans what the fans felt they were missing in the New 52, especially with Superman, but even across the board with some of their other titles as well. They said, okay, we get it. The New 52 was way too much of a departure from the core of what our characters have been about for all these years. Let's try to get back to that. And it's not all been 100% successful, but it's been far more successful than what DC had been going through before that for the last 5 years. And I just don't know that Marvel gets it. I like the legacy covers as an aspect of it. I like the promise that some of these books that have had longstanding numeration of, like, we're on number 700 or something of Spider-Man, and they've just renumbered it so many times as number 1 that you don't get to see that legacy aspect of it. They're saying that they're going to bring back the original numbers again, or they're going to say, like, for the last 10 years that we've had 1 through 15 and then 1 through 6 and 1 through whatever, we're going to add them all up to be where Spider-Man should be. That's nice, but you still haven't proven as a company that you know how to make the comics compelling for sales. And that's where the problem is. And does it have to start at the top? Does it have to be like the editor-in-chief of Axel Alonso? Does it have to be Don Brevoort? Do those people have to go away? And that was much the same way as what people were saying about DC. It's like you keep putting Dan DiDio and Jim Lee in charge, and they keep doing the same stuff over and over again, and it's showing that people aren't taking to their vision. Do we need to get a new visionary in there? Do we need to get a classic visionary in there? Some people have been screaming Jim Shooter should come back. I'm sure nobody louder than Jim Shooter himself. But we don't know enough at this point to say if this is a good thing or a bad thing. But there are certainly characters like America, the Miss America book, is going to continue. The Miss Marvel character is going to continue. The Champions are going to continue. A lot of these things we know are coming back and staying on the same path they were already at. So what have we seen that's changed? Nothing so far. And that's maybe okay, maybe not. Who knows? But the things that have been rumored so far is that we'll see some of the characters return to their classic states. Like, we'll get Bruce Banner back as Hulk. We'll get Steve Rogers back as Captain America in some way after this event, and Tony Stark and all of those things. That's what people believe that they were being sold. We just haven't seen that part announced yet. And I think that comes down again to poor marketing.
No, definitely. I already know Corey's stance on this, and I don't want to ask again, but Shawn and Kevin, you guys don't read comics, do you?
I'm not a big comic reader, mostly because of the cost. With having 4 kids, it's kind of cost prohibitive. But I just learned recently that my local library has started carrying a lot of the collections. And I just checked out the JLA 3 through 6, and I'm starting to work through those. So I mean, I'm familiar enough with it to know. And I think from my perspective, as someone who isn't a real deep comic reader, having the characters be who I expect them to be is kind of what I'm looking for. Like, you know, I don't like trying to figure out, okay, which Flash is this, which, you know, we're in Marvel, which Captain America is this, and why is this one? And, you know, so it gets a little bit too convoluted for me. It's same thing with the renumbering system. Like, you know, we're going to keep resetting. And now, you know, something I know about Captain America is no longer true because it's in this version and not that version. And, you know, so I can say from a very casual comic fan perspective, or someone who is just starting now to get into the comic book side of it, it does tend to confuse things. So, but I don't think that that's who they're doing this for, you know.
No,
so
like I said before, my hope with this is because I came into comic books at a weird time. I came in in Marvel Now and with the New 52. You know, where I was reading comics every day. So I've been reading comics you know, every week for about 5-6 years now, I think. And God, like, how long have we been doing the podcast? Because it's been almost hand in hand. And so for me, it's one of those, like, if they're going to go back to the numbering system, I you know, like I appreciate that, like, because, you know, DC did that with Detective Comics and Action Comics when they did the Rebirth, and it's one of those, like, it's like, okay, yes, it makes sense, because you have, especially when you have these long, you know, running titles, number them that way. I do agree, like, there has been number 1 fatigue, where it's like every year, oh, there's a new number 1, and it's like, no, don't do a new number 1 unless you're gonna cancel the book, like actually full on cancel the book
hit a stopping point. That was one of the frustrations that I saw as a retailer. Is it's one thing to relaunch the book because you've got a new creative team and you're going to start a new storyline and you want to get people on board for that. But when you're giving me a new number 1 and the number 1 is actually continuing the story from number 27 of the last series, it just stopped. All it's going to do is cause confusion. It's going to cause frustration for the people who pick up that number 1 and are lost as to what was going on before. And when you try, as a retailer, my job is to get people their doorway into a comic. So the first thing we have to establish is what kind of stories and comics that you might be into. And then from there, where do you start? Where do you begin that you can feel safe that you're going to pick this up and not spend $4, $5, $10 on a trade to be totally lost or not get a whole story. And that's been a frustration since, honestly, the late 90s, is that there aren't jumping on points. There aren't points that aren't tied so heavily to continuity. And Marvel had the opportunity to clean this up. That seemed like what they were going to do with their, what was the goddamn one that they did just a couple years ago where everything went into different worlds and stuff all over the place. Wars. Secret War. Really? That was Secret Wars? Shit. Yep. Secret Wars. Yeah, and so they automatically were doing a new version of a classic storyline, so you already have to kind of deal with the continuity from that. But then it seemed like Secret Wars was going to lead into a more refined version of the universe. But no, we've got a whole bunch of people popping over from the Ultimate Universe that is dead and gone. We have a whole bunch of different versions of characters from a lot of different places, from time jumps and everything. We got classic X-Men living in the modern day in a way that makes no sense. And it just seemed like Marvel doesn't know how to do legacy. DC is all about legacy. DC maybe has gone overboard with legacy because they have 4 or 5 Robins running around, and they have. If you asked me, so Clark Kent and Lois Lane have a child that's 10 years old. Is that a cool thing to do with the Superman books? I would be like, maybe in ElseWorlds. I don't know how that's going to succeed. But it's been incredibly successful for the Superman books because it's well written and it's well thought out, and the character is good. But I think DC maybe has overdone it with legacy, but Marvel just never knows how to do it. All they've ever done is said, oh, we've got to put somebody else in this suit and call them that name for a little while. Here's U.S. Agent as Captain America. Here's Thunderstrike as Thor. Here's War Machine as Iron Man. And then eventually we give them the old guys back. But now this time it's like, here's a couple of different Iron Mans. Here's a few different Spider-Men. Here's this. And it's like, I don't need 4 Icemen. You know, I don't understand why you think you need 4 Icemen. It doesn't make any sense at all. And
you know why?
Doesn't make
because
sense
it's really hot right now, Corey. Why we need 4 Icemen is because it's really hot right now, especially over
my
there
balls.
in Northern California. Yeah, because you're sunburnt, you could use an Iceman just to so they go.
Which the new Iceman might. I just if I can't sum up a character's origin and what their raison d'etre is in a paragraph or less, then there's something fundamentally wrong with that book. Unless it's a book that's completely self-contained and you're coming into like issue 40 of Why the Last Man, and even that I could pitch really easily at that point. I could pitch Preacher really easily in the last 10 issues of the book as easily as I could in the first 10 issues. But there's a difference with a so overbearing continuity and a lack of story, because every story is meant to get you to the next event, and that's what Marvel's been doing, and this doesn't yet seem to be any different.
Even then, I feel like the Marvel with their whole like this is going to change everything thing. It's sort of they've been looking at it too small. So, for example, like we mentioned with Secret Wars. With what led up to before that was something I wouldn't call an event, but like a mini series with Cataclysm over at the Marvel Ultimate Universe, where it was the winding down of that, which it seems like the only thing that Secret Empire or not Secret Empire, Secret Wars 2 really hit and covered was the quote unquote death of the Fantastic Four, and bringing in Miles Morales and his key component or people that he needed into the 616 Marvel universe.
But he's still
that's what
he's still from the Ultimate Universe though, right?
No, yeah,
So I have to go and have a conversation with a new reader who's like, okay, this Miles Morales character, how did he become Spider-Man? Well, you see, there was this other Marvel universe over here.
No. See, even no,
after Jeff Loeb fucked the dog on it, and
I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna pause you right there. With this one, you don't have to do that, because the origin of how he got his powers is still the same. It's because they hit on that. It's still his uncle stole a spider and it bit him.
But
that part
is still became Spider-Man because Peter Parker died, except he's kicking it with Peter Parker.
See, and that's where I have a big problem with a lot of these is, I have no problem with Miles Morales taking over the Spider-Man mantle. The problem is when Miles Morales is doing it and Peter Parker's doing it and somebody else is doing it. And like you said, you've got multiple Spider-Men running around at the same time. And you got to know which universe, which one's in. And that, to me, that's the issue that I have with them.
And it also kind of takes away the specialness of the characters.
Yeah.
There's Spider-Man, and he does whatever a spider can, except this other guy does whatever a spider can, and this chick Silk all of a sudden can do what the spider can too. And Spider-Woman doesn't do what a spider can, but she's Spider-Woman, and she looks cool, and she's got the boobs. Sure. I don't have a huge problem with the characters with same power sets, as long as you treat them differently, you make them different. But when you make them all incredibly similar, or worse, the same, then it's hard to make that pitch to a reader. Well, which Spider-Man is my Spider-Man? And I like the idea that everybody gets a Spider-Man, and that's the argument that was made. I think Dwayne McDuffie did the story where some kid imagined that he met Spider-Man, and Spider-Man revealed himself to him, and Spider-Man was African-American because the kid was African-American. And in his mind, that's who Spider-Man was. And then the Donald Glover thing of wanting to play Spider-Man in a movie, why couldn't he? There was no reason why he couldn't. He would have done an amazing job playing the Peter Parker character, but because the internet went crazy, and because somebody saw it and said, well, we could do that, but why don't we make a brand new character that has his own story and his own ideas and stuff like that, but make him Spider-Man based off that? That's cool. I love the idea of Miles Morales. I just don't love the idea of having to make a 30-page synopsis of who Miles Morales is to get somebody into his comic. That's just the hardest part.
Yeah. No, yeah. I don't know. My hope with Marvel Legacy, with Sam Wilson becoming, going back to the Falcon, which even then there are still some problems with that, because when in his Captain America book, he had a sidekick who became the new Falcon. It was like this genetic, I'm blanking on the villain, but it's like one of the villains who messes with, does like gene splicing or whatever.
The High Evolutionary?
Not him. It was someone else. I can't think of exactly who it was, but fused this one kid with Red Wing. And he was the new Falcon for a long time, and all that. Basically, all I'm getting at is my hope is that the Marvel Legacy is more DC Rebirth and not Marvel now to the third power.
And I want Marvel to do good books. I want Marvel to be successful. I'm shitting on them a little bit, but I'm shitting on them because I don't know if they have gotten it yet. And I'm not saying that I'm right, but I'm saying that the fans so far are not responding well, and we'll have to see. But I really want Marvel to be super successful.
Yeah.
You know, and I get something out of it, even if I don't read the comics, by the fact that a lot of this stuff does wind up affecting the films at some point.
No, yeah, definitely. The next story that we have is about TV ratings. And it's that Jimmy Fallon has finally broken the Colbert or Stephen Colbert's 5-month winning streak. It's what since the week of January 30th, Stephen Colbert, it's been Colbert and then Jimmy Fallon and then probably Kimmel after that and stuff and all that. But so, Jimmy Fallon finally claimed his victory with an average a slim 340 or
34,000.
Yeah, 34,000 viewers more than CBS's Late Late Show with Stephen Colbert for that week. So, Shawn, you've said you've been watching the Colbert show. You and Kevin have.
Yes.
Are you surprised about this? Like, what is your take with hearing this?
I'm not surprised. Kevin, are you surprised by this or
that
Colbert lost his spot to Fallon?
Not particularly. I mean, having seen both of them, they both have a very different approach, I think, that given time and circumstances appeals to different people. Fallon, I personally prefer Colbert simply because Fallon's a little too strange for me.
He's a little sticky.
Yeah, like, and personality-wise, there's just something about him that I personally don't. It doesn't speak to me, but I know for a lot of people it does. But at the same time, I'm not really surprised by this fact because, for one, I didn't realize that Colbert had more viewers to begin with, so it's not really surprising to find that out. But no, I wasn't particularly surprised by it when I heard it either.
I think the biggest thing to this story is looking at the timeline. The story itself mentions the fact that Colbert's 5-month winning streak started the week of Trump's inauguration.
Yeah.
It's Corey mentioned in the pre-show, it stopped when Trump's been quieter for the last couple weeks. They've kind of clamped down on him and not letting him talk as much. The other thing is that Colbert since Trump has gotten in has become way more of a one-trick pony. He is constantly at Trump. He almost has 2 shows, the opening monologue and then the rest of the show. And the opening monologue some nights is nothing but Trump bashing. And I'm not a Trump supporter by any stretch of the imagination, so I appreciate the Trump bashing, but he's, like I said, he's kind of been becoming a one-trick pony, and he's getting mean. Before it just was like Trump. It's so easy to make fun of some of the stuff that he was making fun of, and he was doing it very smartly. But lately, it just seems more venom than humor.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of stuff in the late night is going to be a turnoff for the people who are tuning into CBS or ABC or NBC, as opposed to when he used to do it over at Comedy Central.
Well, and that's the funny thing is that it seemed to have been what turned more people on, is what we're saying, is that for the first several months of Colbert's show on CBS, it didn't seem like it had a direction. They were trying to take the Colbert that we knew and push that aside. And what he did is he re-embraced some of his persona from the Comedy Central thing, because Colbert got the gig because we loved the Colbert Report and we loved him on the Daily Show. And to cut him off at the knees and take the political stuff out, I think was a mistake, but he is a great host in his own right, and he can do comedy. He has chops outside of being that character. If you've seen him in everything, if you've seen him on cartoon shows or old stuff on Comedy Central before Daily Show even came out, like Strangers with the Candy and stuff, he's excellent. He's got range, but what happened is it was that perfect storm. And I remember Jon Stewart used to say stuff like this too, is that it's a lot easier to do comedy when things are a mess, when you're doing political comedy, because it gives you so much material. And Trump is an endless material guy, but at the same time is is that enough to run a whole show? Because Seth Meyers is doing very good stuff with the Trump things. You know, his rants on him are great as well. Maybe not at the same amount of focus as what Colbert is. And maybe that's, again, because we expect that focus from Colbert. But you're right. It's either that people are starting to find it too mean, or people are maybe starting to identify or appreciate Trump spread. I don't think so. Some people do. Absolutely, some people do. Or that it's just so much of the same thing. Or like me, I just want to tune out sometimes. I have to go for stretches of periods where I can't look at political news and I can't listen to a lot of political comedy because it's just overwhelming, the amount of shit that's happening. It's like you don't want to turn a blind eye to it because you start missing things that are happening.
Right.
And you need to be involved and you need to be aware. But I don't need to be hammered with it when I'm looking for just straight up entertainment.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, plus we're talking about a 34,000 viewer gap shifted suddenly. This is really good news because it means that both shows are successful.
Yeah.
And there can be a back and forth, a balance, a teeter-tottering a little bit of two guys who are bringing you entertainment in late night, and Kimmel and Conan as well. And they're all doing their own things, and they're all making, you know, people have enjoyment and giving us the option. Like, I'm not digging Colbert's shtick tonight, so I can turn over to Fallon, or I can turn over to Kimmel, or I can go over and check out Trevor Noah's take on what's going on with the political stuff. I've got options, but they're all good shows and they're all successful. So that's great, because the worry was that Colbert wasn't performing at Fallon's range, and did that mean that CBS made a bad choice? I think they'll just have to reconfigure the show again.
Yeah. I think that he just needs to be reined in a little bit on the opening monologue. To me, that's the issue, I think, because like I said, it's so, he keeps beating that same drum over and over again. And you watch the stuff after the first break, Midnight Confessional with Stephen Colbert, the thing where he puts on the big fuzzy hat and makes the proclamations. And
that's like one of the best parts of the whole show.
Yeah, the deep thoughts with big stars or whatever. When they, you know, he did a thing with Michelle Obama where they were camping out and they were like, you know, 8 years old and talking about, and it was friggin' hysterical. But it's just, you know, when he just goes after Trump, it goes after Trump, it goes after Trump, and it's not. Like, I'm starting to see, I think, his own personal distaste for Trump come through, and it's not so much humor as it is vitriol, and that's where I think people have a problem.
Yeah, and when you get someone like John Oliver, who only has to do a show one night a week, and does a very good show, and it doesn't have the limitations of being on mainstream TV and everything. When you have John Oliver, each week he picks a different theme. Now, some weeks he says, yeah, this week Trump just was so far out of hand, we have to talk about him. Right. We have to. But he still tries to concentrate the show on a lot of different stuff. And he comes at it more from an educational point of view of, like, I'm trying to teach you guys about this as much as I'm trying to make you laugh through it. And Colbert's, you're right, it's a monologue. Now, some people, that might be the one thing they're hungry for, and they tune in for that opening monologue, and the rest of it doesn't matter. And that may be where their numbers are strongest, and so they keep up with that. But for people who come in and they want to see the people interviewed, like, that was always the thing with me with The Daily Show, is I never really liked the interview portion of it. I liked the portions where he went on his political rants. That's what I watch that show for. Sometimes this gets in between the rant at the beginning and the interview at the end. Sometimes they were good, sometimes they weren't. It depended on who the correspondent was. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I tune into that to see Jon Stewart, you know, hold political people's feet to the fire and hold news people's feet to the fire. I feel like that was something that we didn't have that voice before, and it was important to see that. Now we're getting that voice from a lot of different places. I think we're in the era of people who learn from The Daily Show and who learn from Stewart. And Colbert was there before Stewart was. So, I mean, it's not just all John, but it's that same kind of mentality. And I don't think we need it as hammered down in this type of show, unless that's the show that they wanted to be. But it seems like a weird thing to take what it was David Letterman's show and make it that. And Letterman was always political, and Letterman was never about pulling punches. But and Letterman doesn't really like Donald Trump either.
Yeah.
No,
but I do think it changes the dynamic of what the show has been for the last 30 years.
Right. And I can't see Letterman getting out there every night for 5 months, basically, and going after the same person. You know?
Yeah. But to that point, though, when you have a person, like you have, and I'm gonna phrase this in a different way. You are the CEO of a company. You have press people, and they release a press like Apple. We'll look at Apple. It's one of the biggest companies in the world, and you got their press people that are like, oh, we got the new iPhone S or iPhone 7S, and it's going to do this, and this, and then Tim Cook comes out and goes, yeah, the iPhone 7 or 7S is going to be the greatest phone ever. It's gonna grant your wishes. It's going to do this and that, and like he does this over deliver thing. You're sort of going to and contradicts what his people have stopped, thought, written out, read, and to make it sound smart. And then, oh, you're just going to shit all over that. It sort of seems like, okay, you're giving them material. Like this happened back in the George Bush era, the George W. Bush era, except everyone wasn't like, oh my gosh, he's never done politics, he doesn't know. It was like, he sounds a little, he's a little bit dumb and all that. That's why people went to the Daily Show. That's why I went to the Daily Show as a, young high schooler and all that, was because, they're saying stuff that's contradicting and is making me see, all right, yeah, maybe he's not making smart choices and all that. The other part I will throw in here real quick is the article from the Hollywood Reporter is saying that the victory for the Tonight Show may be short-lived, as late nights or the Late Show's winning streak has also seen the CBS telecast widen the margin of victory with live plus 3-day returns. In short, more people catching up on Late Show with DVR and VOD. So the 34,000 viewer gap could or may evaporate. But on the Tonight Show side, they are still dominating with the 18 to 49-year-olds. The latest week also marked the NBC show's biggest demo win since January. Its average of 0.68 rating in the key demo outperformed the Late Show's 0.42 rating by 62%.
Yeah, if we're going to talk anything about the Trump thing, I just want to make this one point, which is what I'm doing right now is an example of it. The guy is a narcissist, and good or bad, hearing his name said on TV so much just kind of feeds into his power. Mm-hmm. I think, and one of the great things about the Daily Show that I really liked is that while it may have been slightly more one than the other, or maybe not even slightly, they did go after all sides.
Yes.
During the Obama years, they went after Obama, and they went after the Democrats and everything. And while we have a boogeyman right now, if you keep screaming Candyman into the bathroom mirror, don't be surprised when fucking Candyman comes up and kills you.
And the last thing I'll plug is with the British TV shows, one of the shows, The Last Leg, they have a Trump jar where every time they said the name Trump, they put in a pound, a British pound into the Trump jar. So I believe after this last week, they donate, and all that money was going to go towards Syrian refugees.
I thought it would go toward the charities that Trump said he was going to donate to and then didn't.
Yeah, but no, because they started it with the whole it was one of the Trump with the whole like Trump saying we're not going to let in, or basically doing the travel ban. Let's just keep them out and stuff like that. Like, no, we're going to actually do, because they looked at this and they're like, okay, they stopped, thought like, we're doing this. This is smart to let these people in because these are people who are refugees. This is not terrorists. This is not extremists. And I made I'm gonna make a slight little change of plans here with my ElseView in a second, but we'll get to that. And so they're donating. They donated, like, I think it was like 200 and some, almost 300 pounds, to a Syrian refugee charity.
I could donate 300 pounds by cutting off my leg.
What is it, pounds sterling?
I don't know, man. You can dip it in whatever you want.
I was gonna say, I got a metal plate in my arm. We could start there.
You got a lot of metal in you. Come to think of it.
I got a little captain in me.
We should probably mention our Patreon. If you want to be a partner like Growly Bear, you can go to gncast.com/support. And on there you will find ways like Growly Bear did, where you join our Patreon, become a partner, and help us out, help us keep the lights on, help keep your partner afloat. And now it is time for the ElseViews. Corey, let's start with yours, because yours sounds pretty interesting, my friend.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little bummed out of Shawn's choice, because Shawn set me on a path a couple weeks ago of saying that he was going to discuss something on the next episode, but that he didn't get to make it for that episode. But musically, I've been going through some weird stuff, and I don't even know how I fell upon this. But shifting through YouTube, I came across this remix artist. He's a musician. He does other stuff as well, but he goes by Tronicbox. And what he's been doing is 80s remixes of popular current songs and artists. So he's got one of Closer by a group that he calls the Marlboro Smokers, but obviously we know them as the Chainsmokers. He's got some great stuff with Lady Gaga, a Cool for the Summer by, I don't know, one of those teenagers.
Demi Lovato.
Demi Lovato. I actually like that song. I like the original song too. Some Ariana Grande, some Canadian Bastards. I mean, Justin Bieber's. And it's interesting to see it on the YouTube, because what he does is he plays it back like a VHS tape playing, and all of the artists are done up in an 80s phase of pageantry. Like when you look at Justin Bieber, he looks a little bit like Uncle Jesse from Full House. When you look at one of the pictures of Lady Gaga, she looks like Dolly Parton. There was some aerobicized work done on Katy Perry, but that could actually just be a legitimate picture of Katy Perry. I'm not putting anything past that girl. But it's so much fun, and I've listened to a lot of the synthesized 80s kind of throwback stuff. Certainly when Stranger Things came out, the music for that is an 80s throwback, and I listened to a lot of the other bands that were doing stuff like that already, and this is just that next step. It's more recognizable, but he does such a fantastic job of completely remaking the song. Just the lyrics, whatever the person is singing is there, but everything in the backing tracks is completely changed. And sometimes he'll change the tempo down or up to make it poppier or more of a ballad, and it just works so seamlessly and so well, and they're all very masterfully done. You can listen to it on SoundCloud as well, but I've just been going to YouTube and playing it in the background over and over again. It's really fun.
Yeah, I'm checking it out right now, and it does sound really cool. I also realized that, like, doing two separate volume things, like, so my speakers have a volume, and then the computer, I'm like blasting my ear out right now. But yeah, it's... Yeah, I could see myself listening to this tomorrow at work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much nostalgia you have for the 80s since you weren't in them or anything, but
I was born in 89, so you can shut the fuck up.
I'm just saying, a long time ago, back when cable was only 30 channels, we had our own style of music.
And
that was a thing?
One of those channels actually played music videos, so...
Actually, I remember a time where two channels played music videos.
Well, see, that's what you say. You're later. You've got more channels and more music.
And they were right next to each other, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had to wait for shit you like to come onto those channels.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, when are we going to hear Doc and Quit It With the Angels is Centerfold, you bastards?
And see, I, on the other hand, would be like, why are we listening to Dawkins when we could be listening to, Centerfold by Jay Giles?
Jay Giles was certainly a more stimulating video to watch.
That may or may not have been my reasoning.
Yep. Mute.
But yeah, so Tronicbox, that honestly sounds really awesome. Kevin, let's do yours next. Which Pirates of the Caribbean are you bringing to us?
I'm actually going to be talking mostly about
the ride.
Yes, I did go on the ride last summer, actually, when I was out at Disneyland in California. My cousin,
it still inspires you to this day.
It does. I live the life of a pirate. No, but I was actually going to talk about the most recent one, which is Dead Men Tell No Tales. I have never been a fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean series. The first one was pretty good. Second one was decent, and 3 and 4, I like to forget the fact that I even watched those movies. But this one I saw it for Father's Day with my stepdad, because my father here does not have any interest in those movies whatsoever, which is actually why we went and saw Wonder Woman today. But then yesterday, my girlfriend and I went out to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, and she's a huge Pirates of the Caribbean fan. Was so upset that she couldn't come with me to see it the first time, so I had to go see it again. But I'm not going to lie, it's actually, and I say this both for people that are fans of the series and aren't fans of the series, it's a pretty good movie, actually. My girlfriend and I were talking about it. We both thought that it was at least as good as Curse of the Black Pearl, probably better.
Okay.
They do a really good job bringing in some older characters. Barbossa's in it. Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann do show up, as well as obviously Jack Sparrow. And so they bring in some of the older characters, some recognizable faces and things, but they also have these 2 new characters, Henry Turner and Karina Smith, who are they kind of pass along the torch to them. They're a huge part of the movie. They're the ones that are really, the plot is focused on them and their own adventures and personal relationships with the characters.
Were these characters played by Johnny Depp's dogs?
No.
I just assume he takes them everywhere.
No, but it was kind of strange how much, because Henry Turner is Will Turner's son, and it was kind of strange how much the actor they got to play him looked like just a much younger Orlando Bloom. Like, it was, you don't usually...
Isn't Orlando Bloom still like 12?
He is, but this kid looks like he's like 6, so a much younger, or like half his age Orlando Bloom.
Fair enough.
But it was just, and the story was so much better written, I thought, than the other ones. It was compelling. It was a really fun movie too. There were some really cool, fun scenes that were just nice to watch. And some of the jokes in there were really good too. I mean, it was funny to watch. It was fun. It was just all around. I mean, the movie's almost 2.5 hours, but it didn't feel like it watching it either of the times that I saw it. And some movies, you know what's coming and it just doesn't excite you. But with this one, even seeing it a second time, knowing what was coming, I was looking forward to getting to see that stuff again. Whereas with a lot of movies, you just kind of go, okay, well, I already saw this. I know what's coming. Let's just get it over with. And so I honestly, even for people that, have maybe seen some of the earlier movies, or even if you haven't, but just have no interest in it, I would recommend this movie simply because it is fun and you don't really have to know much about what happened in the first few movies. And I think part of that is having these younger actors. It's kind of a new generation. There are some callbacks to the earlier movies, but nothing so groundbreaking that you have to watch them to understand what's going on.
Yeah, so Brenton Thwaites is the the actor who plays the Henry Turner, and then Kea Scaldiero plays Karina Smith. Brenton Thwaites was in Gods of Egypt, and then Maleficent, and what was the other one? The Giver. I think he was the main character in The Giver.
Oh, okay.
And then Kea Scaldiaro, I'm butchering her last name. She is in the first generation group with on the TV show Skins over from the UK.
And also, just to make Shawn and I feel completely horrible about ourselves, Orlando Bloom is 40.
Hey, still younger than me, bastard.
Younger than me too, but not a lot, and not looking like that. That is some harsh shit.
Yeah, the 2 years older than him I am have been a really, really hard 2 years. Let me tell you.
Maybe they'll be hard on him too. Maybe 2 years you'll feel a lot better about yourself.
I doubt it.
I have never been in Orlando Bloom shape, so
no.
So Kevin, real quick, because
unless Orlando Bloom ate 5 other Orlando Blooms.
so Kevin, real quick, because I know in the commercials, I've only seen the commercials for Pirates, but how did you feel about the young Jack Sparrow scenes?
It was, for one, it was a little weird because instead of making young Jack Sparrow look like a young Johnny Depp, they made Johnny Depp look like a young Jack Sparrow, and it was just kind of a strange piece of CGI work that really didn't hold up. But the scenes themselves are very compelling because they tell a lot of Jack Sparrow's backstory about how he got the last name Sparrow and became a captain. And they're also very compelling because it actually is the same scene that sets up the main villain, Captain Salazar, and why he is the way he is and why he's hunting Jack and these kids. And it's just, for the first couple scenes of the movie, you're not entirely sure what his motive is, but then it's I thought a very masterful way to kind of set up the entire movie's plot, as well as we finally get some background on Jack Sparrow after 4.5 movies.
Yeah,
but
you actually answered where I was. Yeah, you actually answered where I was going with that, because I know like this, and then Benjamin Button and the Avengers or Captain America Civil War, where they did the young Tony Stark.
They did
Civil War, I think.
Civil War. They did young Michael Douglas and Ant-Man. They did young. They did Snake Plissken in the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It's becoming a very overused effect on Disney's part.
Yeah.
So like I was wondering like how it looked, like if it looked, because when I saw the young Tony Stark in Captain America, it threw me out for that second.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, that looks, but like it did that with Tron Legacy and all the other times. Like actually Guardians 2 was the first time where it didn't take me out of it.
Yeah, because Kurt Russell really didn't look the same in those younger scenes. He looked like a different person. Whereas
he looked different from a young Kurt Russell.
Yeah. But I feel like a lot of these movies, they just, it's like they take the actor and I think they did do it in Captain America the First Avenger too, with Chris Evans, because they like plastered his face onto a smaller actor before he became Captain America.
Yeah.
And so it was,
but in that regard, it felt earned. The idea of taking the aged actor and making them younger for a scene, it almost feels like it's unnecessary to then do that scene. I know it's kind of ridiculous to have the original actor replaced by somebody younger who doesn't look a lot like them. But that Disney's doing that already with young Han Solo. Maybe at this point they're not. Maybe at this point they've decided that they can't get the guy to act, because I know that they've had to bring in acting coaches for him, and they're just going to have Harrison Ford's face plastered on a 10-year-old or something. Get off my damn Falcon! What? You have a teddy bear. What are you talking about? All right.
Instead of Baby Groot, we get Baby Chewbacca.
Big money lies in Baby Chewbacca.
I bet it does. Yeah.
But honestly, though, for that scene, I mean, that was the only problem that I had with it, was just visually, he did not look good. But everything else about that scene, I thought was really well done. you know, it sets up the villain, gives you a lot more background on the hero and the plot, and it's only like a 5-minute scene out of this 2.5-hour movie. So it doesn't feel like it drags on or anything. It's just a really good way of setting everything up, I thought.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I think I'm going to check that out, but I think I might wait for Netflix because I think it'll be one of those like, oh, it goes to Netflix shortly after coming out on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Just because I've had, like, I liked the first one. I didn't enjoy the second one as much as the first one because I'm like, oh, it's a lot of the same. And then don't remember if I saw the third one. I know I did not see the fourth one because it's just like, it's a lot of the same thing. It's Johnny Depp acting like he's, you know, putting on an accent and then acting like he's, you know, something else or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, blah.
The first one I loved. I thought the first one was such a great original movie. I thought it was a fantastic character. I thought Depp created Captain Jack Sparrow, and it was like one of those things of like, holy crap, that guy disappeared in this role and did something completely original and fun. And then the second and the thirds were so dark and depressing compared to the first film. And in many ways repetitive, but just at the same time, it was just like it lost so much of the fun elements of the first one. And the fourth one is frankly, for me, like Star Trek Beyond. It may have been a good movie. I just can't remember a goddamn thing about it 5 minutes after watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too with this one, it's similar to the other ones because it is pirates and it's Johnny Depp and everything, but it's got enough original stuff, especially with the villain. I mean, I think Captain Salazar is probably the best villain that this series has seen. There's a lot of things about it that make it very different and very compelling compared to the other ones. And it's not as dark as 2 and 3 were. It's a little bit more lighthearted. It feels a little bit more Disney than the other ones did, which was kind of nice after seeing some of the stuff that they did with some of the other movies and everything. But overall, I did think they did a good job of kind of changing things up a little bit and bringing people into it a lot more than the other films did.
No, yeah, cool. So I'm gonna mention one of mine, and then we're gonna do Shawn's because I'm gonna be talking about all three of these 4 things coming up. And because really quickly, it's the Last Leg Correspondents. It's a new all 4, like which is Channel 4 in the UK. It's their digital brand, so it's on YouTube. Where you can watch it. They're doing this thing where they're doing more John Oliver style reporting, but with comedians. The first one they did with a British Muslim comedian, and they were tackling, and they filmed it before some of the tragedies that had happened recently in England, and they were hitting some things. Like one of the parts they hit in the show was with like the radicalized Muslims is, well, what are they doing? What is he doing as an Islamic or as a Muslim to stop radical Islamic terrorism? And he's like, none of my friends are Islamic or are radical Muslims or anything like that. You know, it's sort of like asking, a banker, what are you doing to stop money laundering? And he did that. He goes to a bank. He's got a microphone. Like, hey, can I talk to you a second? What are you doing to stop money laundering? You know, and all, just to point how stupid it is to talk about that. It's a great show. They only done 1 episode. I think there's going to be another episode coming out this week. But check it out. It's on YouTube. Just search Channel 4 or Last Leg Correspondents. I think I spelled it right in our show notes. I don't know. But Shawn, you've been feeling the glow recently.
I have been all aglow recently.
You are the last dragon. You possess the power of female wrestling.
Yeah, and I'm going to put on my old man hat here for a minute and say,
wait, don't you always have that on?
Shut up. We're just previewing our cosplay that we're going to do as Statler and Waldorf at the next convention. But anyway, when I was a kid, I was into wrestling, like really into wrestling. I went to a friend's house and we did all the pay-per-view stuff. I used to go down to the Spectrum on a monthly basis and see the live show that would come to Philadelphia every month. It was such a big treat on Saturday nights to stay up when they did Saturday Night Main Event. But when I was a kid, you had Hulk Hogan, say your prayers and eat your vitamins, and you had guys walking around with 2x4s and entering the ring in kilts, and it was goofy and it was fun and it was full of schlock, and nothing was as schlockful as Glow was. Glow came out in like the late 80s. It was the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, and it was, I think the best way I've ever heard it described is it was part professional wrestling and part hee-haw. And it was very much in that vein. I mean, they had these little skits and the characters and everything. Well, Netflix has gone and made a show. It's a comedy. The episode, 10 episodes, about 35 minutes each episode. And it's got a great cast. Allison Brie is in it. Mark Maron, who I normally don't care for, to be honest, is fantastic in the role that he's got. And then there's a lot of other people who are not household names who are really good in the show. And it follows the creation of Glow. And the thing that I found really interesting was a lot of the stuff that I read was like, yeah, they use the name and it's like really loosely based on it. But I think they actually undersold that part. I think it's really a lot more based on it than people are realizing. And I came to that realization because after I watched Glow, Netflix was kind enough to recommend a documentary that was made in 2012 by Stephen Yu, I think was the director. No, I'm mixing that up. He's the guy that did the Jake the Snake one. Never mind. I'm getting my wrestling documentaries mixed up. See, I've been going down my own rabbit hole lately. But anyway, they did a really good documentary and talked to a lot of the women that were involved. Even had them had a reunion at the end, and it was really very touching. But watching the documentary after watching the show, you see how many things they really hit on. Converted it, made it into comedy and things like that, but a lot of it is based in the actual historical fact. And the Glow show that Netflix did, the Netflix original, is it's funny, it's touching. I may or may not have had to take my glasses off and wipe my eyes during the last episode. I'm not admitting to anything. Yeah. That's another thing that happens when you get old. But
your eyes start leaking.
Yeah, your eyes start leaking when you watch television and movies. But I can't recommend it enough. But if you're going to watch the show, do yourself a favor and invest the hour and 20 minutes into the documentary afterwards. I really think it gives you a better appreciation for what you just watched. And I mean, I loved that show when it was on. It was the worst possible. Like you watch the documentaries and you see the clips from it and you cringe and just go, oh my God, this was, on television, let alone the fact that it was television I enjoyed. But it was the corny, goofy, zany side of professional wrestling. And, I guess maybe it pulled on those heartstrings of my youth, but I really enjoyed the show and the documentary as well.
What I also enjoyed it. I've only seen the first 5 episodes. Mm-hmm. But the thing I had caught from because I'm a Attitude Era, like early Attitude Era with WWE, never watched WCW, to now watcher of wrestling, and it's cool to see like one of the actors, she has a recurring role, but she's a 5-time women's champion, across the independents, and holding the then TNA, it's now Impact Wrestling Championship. Kaya Stevens, she plays Tammy Dawson on there, also known as the Welfare Queen. She's an actual professional, one of those, when I would watch her, I'd be like, man, I hate her. Like she's good, but it's like, I hate her because she's a great heel. Yeah. She's a great bad guy because it's like, she's beating up on women like a quarter of her size. Not a quarter, but like half her size. Oh, yeah. She's just like, it's like, who's going to beat her and stuff like that. But I mean, they've got, and out of the wrestlers that I've seen in here, like John Morrison plays the Salty the Sack Johnson from the first episode. They got Brodus Clay, Carlito from WWE Joey Ryan, Brooke Hogan's in here, Alex Riley, Christopher Daniels, and Frankie Kazarian are all in here. And like so far with seeing, I've only seen 4 of them with Kaya Stevens, who was Awesome Kong in TNA. But seeing her, John Morrison, and Brodus Clay, I didn't realize it was Carlito until I looked here, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
because he didn't look like the dude with the poofy fro who would eat the apple and be like, I spit in the face of people who are not cool, and all that. Like he looked totally different here, but I've really enjoyed the show too, and I've never, I loosely grew up on Hulk Hogan, say your vitamins, or say your prayers, eat your
say your vitamins, eat your prayers. We got it.
Yeah, and all that. But this is. Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, no, I was just gonna say, like, it's really cool to see this. Like, I do like Mark Maron's character in here. It's like, because he's skeevy, but it works. Like, he's doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah, and it's funny because you mentioned the welfare queen character, and when that character in the show is being developed, there's a meeting in Mark Maron's office between Mark Maron and the welfare queen, and she's really voicing her concerns about how this is so stereotypical, this is so demeaning to Black culture and things like that, and they have a really good back and forth about how this can be used as social commentary. And when you watch the documentary, they really go into a lot of the stuff about how they did a ton of stuff in the original show that was social commentary. So yeah. I really liked the fact that they were willing to, go down that route, because the Asian girl, her wrestling name is Fortune Cookie, and then you've got the British girl who's Britannica, and you've got, the all-American girl who's Liberty Bell. And then, it's just, and then she ends up being enemies with the girl who does the Russian character. And, and all of that was, derived right from the original storylines in Glow. But it was really cool to see them do those types of things and have the characters not just blindly go into this and say, well, I'm an actress, I need the job, I'm going to do this. They really wrestled with, pun unintended. They really wrestled with the social commentary of it as well, which I don't think I appreciated as a kid, but watching the documentary now, got a much better appreciation for what they really did with that.
Yeah. Also, I will add the Asian wrestler, as you call it, Jenny Che, the actress Ellen Wong, also played Knives Chow in Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, she was in.
Yeah.
What was that horror movie that I've just been going nuts over recently? Damn it.
Silent Cargo? No. Silent Night?
No, it was the throwback kind of 80s feeling.
Part. The Void. The Circle.
The Void.
The Void.
Oh, yeah, that movie is so good. And she was the only actor or actress that I knew in that film.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those things, like seeing that, and I clicked, I'm like, that name, Ellen Wong, that name sounds so familiar. And like just me looking at the Wikipedia page, and I go, what? Oh, did not recognize her.
Yeah.
Did not, then again, Scott Pilgrim came out in 2010, so that was 7 years ago, but still it was one of those, I'm like, what? It threw me for a second, because it was one of those, much like Carlito, like they dove into this character, or enough time had passed where I hadn't really seen them on anything, where it's like, okay, this is actually really interesting, at like that they're doing good. Like I don't see them being, oh, this is Ellen Wong playing this character. I just see Jenny Che, who's an actor or actress in the 80s, who then becomes the fortune cookie, and stuff like that. But yeah, and so the documentary is available on Netflix.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the last show we're going to mention here, and I know I'm cheating by doing 2, and I don't care, because it's going to be really quick because it's 1 episode. It's the Gong Show. This is the return of the Gong Show. We talked about this before in the news with the fact that the host, Tommy Maitland, you might if you watch the show, you might recognize the voice, because that is Mike Myers. And I honestly wonder want to know how much of that is prosthetic, because if that's all prosthetic face, like on him, how does he not like just sweat so bad, really, like in between actually, like, hold on, we got to go cool off Mike and stuff like that. But did any of you guys see the Gong Show, the premiere last Thursday?
Was not even aware it was a thing.
Yeah, I watched the last half of it when it repeated on Saturday, and Zach Galifianakis, Will Arnett, and Ken Jeong were the judges on it.
Yep.
And it just seemed like, other than Will Arnett, because I know he's a producer on the show, Ken and Zach seemed to have no fucking idea what they were doing on that show.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
It just seemed they were just, how did I get here? It's one of those things where you've had your drink on all night and you wake up and you're in bed with a cowboy and 3 pigs, and you just go, the fuck happened? And that might have been one of the acts on the show. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly, but it was kind of a hot mess, which the Gong Show is, and I appreciate it for that perspective, because they didn't try to update the Gong Show and make it anything other than what it used to be.
No, yeah.
But it's also a show that's very hard to make successful. It was always kind of an underground program in the 70s and 80s when it was on. And then when they tried to bring it back with, I think Dave Attell was the host, it did not do well, even on Comedy Central, which can handle that kind of show. ABC, primetime, weird.
But it's going in the summer. So I could easily see, like, I was talking, because my grandma, she watched, actually, yeah, it was the Saturday replay, because I had brought laundry over, and I was like, and I go, so did you just turn it on? Like, how far are you? Like, what do you think of what you're watching? And she's like, it's weird. I'm like, yeah, it's a talent show like America's Got Talent or whatever, but for the people who would never get on America's Got Talent, or any of those other reality shows, reality
it's
competition
if American Idol was all William Hung singing She Bangs.
yeah. I enjoyed the show. I mean, I liked it early on. It seems like Zach Galifianakis was like, all right, I owe Will Arnett a favor. Ken Jeong got really into it. I don't know if you saw the one, there was a couple that came out and they just sang a song. It's called You Never Gong an Asian. And yeah, talking about how it's like, like cultural appropriation and stuff like that. Well, who gongs them? Well, Ken Jeong gongs them.
Yeah, because he can get away with it.
Yeah, it's funny because
but that's the thing, because technically you can gong an Asian, but once you gong black, you never gong back.
Yes.
But I mean,
send your hate mail to ElseNerds@gmail.com.
Yes, or on Twitter @ElseNerds. I do want to point out, actually, I'm going to look it up, but we did get some feedback from last week, and from Bado Winter, and I want to thank you, Bado, for replying about our discussion about the whole how do you make recast and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into it because that would be another 5-hour show. But with the whole Marvel movies and stuff like that, he replied quite a bit, and I apologize for not catching that sooner. But yeah, so the Gong Show. Do you remember how much they got as a prize back then? Because I know, like, today it was like on the episode, it was like $2,000.
It was a couple $100 at best, I think. Yeah, and I felt like this was a play off of it. I think they maybe moved the decimal.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is it for ElseViews, and we will be back with the ElseWord.
Are ghosts or Bigfoot real? Whatever happened to all that stuff that went missing in the Bermuda Triangle? Did the U.S. government experiment with time travel? Is there a secret society really running the world? Hell if we know, but you're guaranteed to hear us try to figure it out on the Weird World Weekly podcast. If it's the paranormal, conspiratorial, mythological, unexplained, or anything else strange, we talk about it. Find us on your favorite podcast app or by going to gncasts.com/weird. That's gncasts.com/weird.
We are back, and it is time for the ElseWords. This is our main topic discussion thing of the night, and this is the without getting into spoilers, but this is basically how Wonder Woman has changed the DC cinematic universe, or expanded cinematic universe, whatever initials they're going by. So this is, basically, because a couple of reports I had seen coming out of it was talking about, like, with just how different of a tone, and Shawn and Kevin can attest to this, is that it seems like it's going to change the future movies and all that. So Shawn and Kevin, give us your spoiler-free review of the movie, and like what you thought of it overall.
Can I go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to start off by saying it was hard to believe walking out of that movie that it came from this. I know it was different, slightly different crew, but it was the same company and same universe that brought us Suicide Squad. That was really hard for me to believe after watching this film, because it was honestly one of the best superhero movies, and one of the best movies all around, I would say, that I have seen in a very long time. I mean, the story was just enticing, and you got so involved with these characters, and just everything about it. There were some twists in there that you weren't really expecting, and the action scenes were phenomenal. I mean, just the choreography and some of the stunts they were doing were insane.
Yeah.
It's the first, I was saying this to my dad earlier, it's the first time during a movie that I have had to actually remind myself to keep breathing, because that last fight scene was just so, like, intense that I was just like, I needed to remind myself to stop holding my breath and breathe, or I was going to pass out in the movie theater. I loved the film. I thought it was spectacularly done. And I think it's actually, so far, I have to say, I've been very exclusive to Marvel, especially with the movies. But this actually makes me really excited for Justice League coming out, and kind of makes me feel like all of Marvel's question about whether or not people would actually watch a female-led movie, I think they're all down the drain, to be honest, because this just blew every other super movie out there out of the water, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and for somebody who has set such a low bar so far with DC, I think all of a sudden Marvel, with these movies coming out this year, I think they're going to be a tough sell. Especially, like we were talking, Thor comes out in November, and we thought that was when Justice League came out, was right around the same time. And I think coming off the success of Wonder Woman, I think unless Spider-Man Homecoming does phenomenal things for Marvel in July, I think Thor is going to be a hard sell. I'm hoping it will. We saw the trailer for that today too, and I think that looks really good. But
sorry, you're talking to Spider-Man, like Spider-Man being my first superhero I got into, so it's like, it's gonna do well. It's gonna do well.
Well, so no, let's say though that the Spider-Man movie is getting a lot of really great response.
Yeah.
But we have had 5 other Spider-Man movies before this, and so the expectations of it are not the same as what the expectations were for a Wonder Woman movie, which is, this is kind of a make or break thing in a lot of ways, not just for female-led superhero movies, but kind of for the DC film universe so far. Is that every time they go to a new one, they say they're going to make changes and they're going to learn from the response from the audience, and it hasn't shown yet up until now. And this is, some people are saying this is the new DC movie universe. Its first foray into that. But then we do back up and go back to what was at least originally done by Zack Snyder in Justice League, And maybe he had already gotten feedback. Maybe there were already things that he was planning on changing and reevaluating how he's going to do the films or not. And now Joss Whedon is coming in to finish up the movie for him because he unfortunately had to step away from it. But I still assume that Joss is going to come in and be very true to whatever Zach's vision was, for good or ill, from the fan perspective. So there's still, I think the thing that's going to be what we look forward to is Wonder Woman 2. And how does that happen? And is Patty Jenkins going to make a lot more money because they only signed her up for one film? I expect she is. I hope she is. Is it going to be, are we going to get the same wonderful type of story, but in a modern day setting with Diana? That'll be something to see them do as well. So I'm excited for it. Like I said earlier, I haven't been able to see it yet, and I'm disappointed that I haven't been able to see it, but I so love the response to this. And I love that it is across the board. Like, people will say that there are parts that maybe they didn't like as much, but everybody seems to be incredibly impressed with this movie. And I think that all along, the only thing that we've had is not bad response to female-led superhero movies for no reason. I think that they were the right response for what were shitty movies. And not simply because of the gender of the main character.
So I want to point out with the article, with what it's saying, is this captured something that me and Corey have talked about a lot of times with Suicide Squad, Batman vs Superman, Man of Steel missing, and that is the heart of the characters, the essence of the characters. And you could basically sum up what the Wonder Woman movie hit in 5 words: heart, humor, hope, heroics, and optimism. All of those were nailed in this movie with a character that can do that. Like, it's like I said before, like in past episodes, you can do dark and gritty with a character who is dark and gritty. Batman is a dark and gritty character. Superman, not so much. Yeah. Superman has been dark and gritty at times, but to base a whole movie off of, you're sort of missing the step. So with Wonder Woman, like I talked about it on with Peter Fisher, there were dark moments, like there were like the color, but it was when you're in World War I and you're in on a battlefield, you expect that. You don't expect to see trees all over the place and butterflies flapping. It's like you're in a fucking war zone, so you're gonna get that. The other thing, like what I hope this means going forward, is that characters like some of the Green Lanterns, Flash, these more lighthearted superheroes, that translates into here. There is a part of me, and I honestly mean no ill will towards Zack Snyder, especially with the things that had happened, circumstances with him stepping back from Justice League. I feel like if they had held Justice League off and then had done another movie there, had done like a Flash movie or Green Lantern or something like that, that we would have a better Justice League movie. Because my fear is that we're going to get that dark and gritty movie like we got with Man of Steel, and people are gonna get not offended is not the right word, but people are gonna get upset. People are gonna get, DC obviously can't do a good movie unless it's Wonder Woman, sort of deal.
Or Batman.
Or Batman because you can do dark and gritty with Batman and it makes sense. But I don't know. Shawn, what do you think about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
no, I was just gonna forward to Shawn.
My sense coming out of it is that it's kind of two-pronged, and I'll say the more controversial part first, is that this movie was to me completely derivative of other movies. All the things that you point to that are great about Wonder Woman, I could probably point to another movie. The cinematography and the choreography of the fights looked so much like Kingsman. Right down to we're going to go fast forward, we're going to slow it down, we're going to do this, we're going to shoot, shift the angle. The period piece comes right out of, Captain America. So you could start to point to all the things that everybody likes about this and say, well, it's derivative of X, but it was fantastic to see all of those things strung together in a way that was cohesive, told a great story, and was a beautiful movie.
I think in some ways even improved on some of those things.
Agreed.
Especially like the portrayal of, I know it was two different world wars, but the portrayal of war in Wonder Woman is, I think, a much more realistic and a much more dramatic effect than what we saw in like Captain America or something along those lines. So I think not only did they bring those together very beautifully, but they also enhanced them.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you've said. Even in your praise of the movie earlier, I agree completely. It's the best movie I've seen all year. Possibly the best movie I've seen maybe since the original Avengers in a movie theater. And it was a great movie. And I love everybody's response. And, I'm just saying that I think it's very interesting that this director was able to take, and the writing staff was able to take, pieces from other things and make them very cohesive. Whether they knew they were doing it or not, that was the end result for me. I was reminded of a lot of different movies at different parts, but it never took me out of it. It never really diminished the whole. They took all these other little parts and made this wonderful whole.
Yeah.
They made this wonderful movie. And if this is what the rest of the DC universe is going to be, I'm all in. This was fantastic. I've had worries. I'm a DC apologist. I have a Batman tattoo on my arm. I am, if it's DC, I'm usually good. But the movies were just so, like you're saying, dark and gritty, and the brooding Superman. I don't need that. I need truth, justice, and the American way Superman. And so I think moving it into a little bit more lighthearted, letting these characters be who they are on the pages, but on the screen. If they're going to continue that, and this article seems to lend credence to the fact that they will, then I think the DC universe has a legitimate shot of being on par with Marvel. I mean, we can all admit that Marvel has kicked DC's ass left and right in the movie theater up until this point.
Yeah.
This might be the turn. I don't think that DC is going to overtake Marvel, but I think DC has just made themselves much more in the fight.
Yeah. They've given themselves a really good shot at
Yeah.
And I've been loving the Marvel movies, and I see some of them are far better than others. And I was a big fan of Captain America, the First Avenger, and certainly Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I don't need one to be better than the other. I don't need one to win and the other one to lose. I'm a DC Comics fan more than I'm a Marvel Comics fan, but it was never to me that, oh, well, I want the Marvel movies to suck and the DC ones to rule. Because as soon as Iron Man came out, and I was not an Iron Man fan in the least, but I went and saw the movie because I felt like I kind of had to, and it was incredible, and it blew my mind, and it was that perfect symmetry of the best actor to play the best version of this character in this role, and an incredible movie to boot, and to launch the whole Marvel universe off of that. And I don't mind saying, sometimes I see a Marvel movie and I'm like, okay, this feels a little repetitive. This feels a little bit less original. But then I see them do something like what Thor Ragnarok looks like, and I think, what a great direction to try to take this in. What an interesting thing to do. The Guardians of the Galaxy could have been, a dark, ominous team in space if they wanted to, but that's not the vision that they had for it, and what they did worked perfectly in the end. But you have to be true to the characters, and being true to Wonder Woman is important. Being true to Superman is important because these are characters that have been established for a long time and have existed for so many years because people love them, people believe in them. And yeah, you can say, oh, we can do something that's kind of a throwback and silly because of the 70s TV series. And that would have been an option, but I don't know that it would have worked as well as what this is. But at the end of the day, I want great DC movies and I want great Marvel movies. And when Valiant stuff starts coming out, I want great Valiant movies. No one ever says, I want my movie experience to suck. You know, At most you might say, I am so sick and fucking tired of the success of the Michael Bay Transformers movies overseas. I wish the people would just get a fucking clue so they would stop making them and maybe somebody would make a good Transformers movie. But in the end, he's already stopping making them himself, and it is sure as hell his vision going forward. But that means that maybe somebody will make a good Transformers movie finally.
Yeah.
And so that's enough for me. And if for some fucking magical reason Michael Bay made a great movie and it happened to have Transformers in it, I would have to cop to that.
Yeah.
Because it's not that I hate Michael Bay. I just have not enjoyed any of his films that I can think of.
Yeah.
But the guy could suddenly turn it around. And Zack Snyder maybe turned it around with Justice League. And I'll have to say that. I'll have to say all the shit I said about your Batman v Superman and your Man of Steel, I still stand by because I think that they had huge problems. But god damn it, you sure shit showed me that you could make a great film with Justice League. And I'm very happy that you did. I hope that's the case. I pray that that's the case. And I pray that it's the case of Zack Snyder doing it and not Joss Whedon fixing it. Because I'd like to see credit due where it is.
Yeah. I like in the Variety article that we have in our notes on this, they asked both John Berg and Geoff Johns about, why did audiences embrace Wonder Woman? And Berg goes, it's a fun movie. It's positive and optimistic. The early films may have been too dark in parts. And Geoff Johns goes, most of the DC universe is known as being a hopeful and optimistic place. I feel like this might piss off Corey in a second. It's known for characters that are inspirational and aspirational. Anyone who knows and loves the DC universe knows that a lot of that has to do with its hope and optimism. I feel like that's what we hit at a lot with here. Like with a lot of these characters, especially, with like I come at this from Marvel Comics side, but it's not like, oh, Marvel is better. It is more of, let's make good shit. Like let's not just, throw pasta on the wall and see what sticks. Let's make the best Wonder Woman movie. Let's make the best Justice League, insert whatever it is here, movie that we possibly can and all that. But it's that statement there that Geoff Johns makes that makes me go, wait, you were involved with The Flash on CW, Arrow on CW, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow. I believe you were involved in these other movies. You've had some say as to, wait, I think we're making it too dark and we're losing the hope.
He might not have had as much of a say as you are giving him credit for. Just like the guy who's been doing those CW shows worked on the Green Lantern movie. There's different levels. We're in a week where just a few days ago, the two guys who have had some incredibly successful films were suddenly taken off at 60% done of a movie because they suddenly said, yeah, what you guys are doing doesn't really work for us. Lord and I can't remember the guy's name now. Miller were taken off Han Solo when the film was half done. I think that there are production companies and maybe even higher ups than directors that can say, no, we're doing it this way. Or we have deals in place and the person who's in charge of this isn't you. I get it. And I don't ever want to say that there can't or shouldn't be dark superhero movies, because there can and there should be, and some of them are hugely successful. The Dark Knight is a great example of doing Batman to I think the best that Batman has ever been done, other than the animated series, because fucking that animated series was the bomb.
Yeah, definitely.
But certainly the best of the Batman films, in my opinion, is The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger, and everything about that movie is just so terrific. And it set a standard. And unfortunately, that standard was then tried to be placed on characters that weren't Batman. And that's where the thing falters, is you have to have someone who fundamentally understands what makes this character great. It's the David Goyer thing that we talked about before, where David Goyer says, well, you can't do Martian Manhunter and call him Martian Manhunter because that's stupid. Well, then you're probably the wrong guy to write Martian Manhunter. And you're probably the wrong guy to write She-Hulk if you think she's there to sex up the Hulk. They're related, you stupid motherfucker. You get the people who get the crux of what these things are. The guy who made Captain America: The First Avenger, it may not have been a realistic film, and it certainly wasn't a realistic depiction of war, but he knew what he was doing to make a very good representation of Captain America. And to introduce that character and the morals of that character and everything else that they did that set the stage for what they did with Captain America in Winter Soldier, because Captain America himself is still that guy from that first movie. 100% purely the heart and the soul of this guy has existed through all the films he's been in. And that's why he's been my favorite character in these films, because everything they established in that first one, you take out the setting, you take out the seemingly schlock value of the, you know, it's a little bit retro, it feels a little bit unrealistic, but then you put him in the realistic bits and he's still Cap.
Yeah,
it's just so done right. And that's what we've needed, is someone to have the heart and soul of these characters and to understand that, yes, when you're speaking of Superman and you're speaking of Diana, you are speaking of hope. But when you're speaking of Batman and the Joker, you're speaking of something darker and something more sinister. And when you're speaking of Hawkman, you're going to have war be a primary thing, because Hawkman is a warrior in a way that is more than what some of these other characters are. If you're speaking of Green Lantern, then you've got to go with something that's huge and imaginative and not a giant shit cloud coming out of nowhere that is indefinable on the screen. So you've got to figure these things out. And I don't know if Johns just misspoke or if he was just trying to give a very simple answer, but I know he was also trying to give an answer that the fans have been asking for, which is, why have these things been so dark? Don't you understand who these superheroes are?
Yeah, and I think I might be, you know, giving him too much credit, or, you know, harping on him too much. But I mean, that's partially it, is, you know, like, this is a guy who's been working in comics for a very long time. You know, is one of the higher ups on the DC Comics side of things.
He's also the one who spearheaded DC Rebirth after Lee and DiDio spearheaded New 52. And you can see that the similarities between Rebirth and what this film has done. Yeah. If that's Johns's if that's Johns's thumbprint on that, then that's some good DNA to have.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this?
Just that for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, you should go out and see it.
Yeah.
Corey.
God damn it.
Corey, that means you.
Support our Patreon so that Corey can go see a goddamn movie once in a while.
Yeah, you could. It's a great segue, Corey. I'm going to take it. You know,
Our Patreon does not pay me at
No,
all,
no,
let
it
alone to
doesn't.
go see a movie. But
no, it is strictly for, you know, again, you know, thanks to Growly Bear for being, our newest partner in the growing Galactic Network Empire. I almost said Galactic Empire, but I'm like, wait, nope, that makes Dave Emperor Palpatine. Dangerous place to go there. Because I think that then makes Brad Vader. I don't know. All I know is I'm one of the guys who just sweeps the floor on the Death Star in this analogy.
Yeah. We could be both of those.
Yeah. You can be the two that like run into each other.
And apparently Corey is a cross between a little droid and the Cantina Band.
Corey should just be the whole Cantina Band.
and the dancer, because I got the sexy.
But if you want to be like Growly Bear, you could go over to galactic or gncast.com/support. And over there you will find our Patreon page where you can be a partner, or the Amazon affiliate link is over there as well, where you do your shopping on Amazon. You go through that. We get a little bit of money. We're taking money from Jeff Bezos. What could be better than that? if you want to leave us voicemail or any feedback, you can leave us voicemail by calling 805-328-3966 or emailing mail@elsenerds.com. I read all of it. I read every single one. I even read the junk mail folder because it's that boring. And you can find all of our...
to support the show and be like Rowley Bear is show up. We record. It's kind of sporadic right now. The schedule's a little wonky, but we do record. We announce the recordings on our Facebook page. If you look up ElseNerds, or if you follow the Galactic Networks page, and just come be a part of the group. Join the conversations with us. We love having people in our chat, and we also love feedback on iTunes and Google Play,
Stitcher,
and wherever
Google Play.
you get your podcast from.
Yeah. The Facebook page, you can find it over at facebook.com/galacticnetcasts. Twitter @galacticnetcast, or the show is @ElseNerds if you want to talk to the ElseNerds in particular. Or you could follow the producers, Beatmasters at Beatmaster80. Evan is at Mr_Fusion. I'm at that Gregor. Corey, where can people find you?
You can find the comics I publish at donascomics.com.
And Shawn, you are at SBurnsPA, correct?
That is correct.
And Kevin, where can people find you?
That's an excellent question. I have a Twitter, but I can't remember what it is because I never use it.
Helpful.
Find me on the
Shawn,
You can't find Kevin. He doesn't really exist.
Kevin is out with his girlfriend getting played. We ain't got none of that, so I get it. That's fine.
Kevin's just a very elaborate puppet I bring with me once in a while.
Yes, his ventriloquism act is getting better, I will say.
Yeah, for the audio listeners, there has been no Kevin. It's just been Shawn doing another voice.
Don't make the hand signal because that goes right back to the butt plug conversation we had at the beginning.
Exactly.
And now it's
Just
going
bringing it
full
right
circle.
around.
And the final thing to be said before we get fired from this network is this has been a Don't Tell Glenn production. We will see you next week.
Or fisting.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's GNCASTS.com.